playing on 6.
You're never going to let me live that one down, are you? After I beat you in 2 best of 5s, one after the other. I messed up 1 turn. Yep.
I will fight with honor.
All right, let's get into it. Staz opening up with the World Kick Rogue. And Alutem on that Libra Paladin that we just saw. Staz World Kick Rogue, relatively standard. Does have an Ogre Mancer tucked away in that 5 spot. But that's about it as far as interesting tech inclusions go. And you know, we're seeing Ogre Mancer become popular in quite a bit of decks. A lot of Highlander decks, seen it in a couple rogues. So, see how it plays out.
Yeah, not necessarily convinced on it in Rogue, but one card that I am absolutely convinced on is 4-mana Edwin. I think even though it's you know, one of those cards where whenever a card is nerfed, the immediate reaction is it's unplayable, it's been deleted from the game. People quickly realized with Foxy Fraud in there, shadow stepping it back multiple times, Edwin is still absolutely a playable card, and a very strong one at that.
Yeah, just comes out a turn later. Alutemu, not the greatest opening hand. That makes it slightly better, but even the first day of school, not very impactful. Potion Vendor and Mermy. There's not a lot of power, not able to put on enough pressure. And double Penflinger without really any early spells to capitalize on. I accept the coin. Not great.
It's just that hand that we've been seeing over and over so far today. It's a couple of Penflingers, some random 1-drops, and nothing doing anything because these Penflingers, they're too valuable. The broom is too valuable. You can't just be throwing down Lady Liadrin as well until you get some good value off it. It's just nothing.
This feels like almost every game. I feel like the amount of times that we've seen Aldor Attendant into Hand of Vidal has been quite low so far this tournament. Obviously, it's an incredibly small slice of the larger Masters Tour Ironforge pie that we're seeing, but I can't help but feel it's just weak.
Let me think.
It has, yeah, definitely not been looking like the deck so far. But to be fair, Staz is giving him plenty of time to find those cards should he need to. It's been a very, very slow start, relatively speaking. Again, he's been on the play, so it's difficult to get off to one of those rip-roaring starts without the coin for Rogue. But even then, not what you're looking to do at the start with the Rogue.
Yeah. So it looks like Jandis is slated for next turn. And so my initial thought was World Kick Master plus Dagger Up, but if you know that you're not playing any combo cards next turn, no upside to World Kick Master, is that really worth it? And then next I was thinking, what if you just go double Goblin Lackey, push the damage to face, Dagger Up?
That was, yeah, that was my first
one
instinct.
minion.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking, do you just Secret Passage? Like, obviously he was going to do it, you have to do it very soon because the animations get pretty sketchy with Secret Passage. But, you know, his hand has a fair amount of value. It's not like he's necessarily going to need the card advantage. What Secret Passage could afford him, though, is just, you know, maybe questing prep spell or just a Miscreant played onto the board potentially, whereas this turn was very underwhelming.
Yeah. Quite so. I do like the hold on World Kick Master, though. I think, like, oh, I'm going to play a 2-drop and Dagger Up, and my World Kick Master's not going to die. It's a trap, right? Because you're not even playing any combo cards next turn.
Yeah, agreed.
Most likely. So I like that he didn't go for that play, but I do think there was maybe some potential for better options.
So Penflinger starting us off, and then first day of school. He could have gone with the double shoot on the Miscreant, but then you're very possibly looking at using the coin, which is absolutely not what you want to do here. But these two 1-drops that he got here look a lot better than what we were looking at last turn.
Yeah, depth charge, especially in this situation when he's behind on board, quite good, because at the moment, Staz doesn't have a great way to kill it, and I don't think he wants to sink 5 damage into it when he doesn't even have that big of a board to protect. But, I mean, he could go Pharaoh Cat, World Kick Master, Eviscerate, and at least he has some semblance of a board.
Yeah, that's definitely where my head's at. I am a huge fan, I must say, of Generous Mummy in this matchup because it does open up the true OTK of Pen Flingers and all the Librams later on potentially as well. I'm not a fan of playing it, I should say. I'm a fan of seeing it if it does come down there.
I mean, it's a 3/5. It's incredibly threatening. 3/4. What? 3 mana 5/4. What?
It's a 5/4. Yeah, that was an interesting one.
I said 3/5. I stopped. I missed a number. I left out a number. 3 mana 5/4.
Let me
Otherwise known as a 3/5.
For 4. Well, again, it's just a whole lot of nothing. This is why you want the Aldor Truthseeker. It feels like it's been one of the most crucial missing parts in so many games. It's the fact that you draw these Librams, but they're just not good. An 8/8 for 8 mana with Divine Shield and Taunt is fine. You know, it's not terrible, but the health isn't all too relevant that it's giving you yet. And you just need those cards to make it cheaper for it to really be game-winning. Oof. This turn was awful. I mean, using the coin there instead of the animated broomstick, I'm honestly not even sure if that was worth it there. I was kind of more on board with just going like hero power broomstick to kill off the world kick, or even just leaving the world kick on the board, because now not being able to go coin Libram into Libram is so backbreaking.
Yep.
A Jandis so good that it broke the game. It looks like from the player's reaction that this is on their end rather than just a spectator issue, but thankfully, as we keep saying, due to the pause functionality that Hearthstone has now implemented, this should be a solvable technical error that we can get through and then carry on with the game.
For a second there, it almost... Oh, there we go. We're back. All right. So we're choosing which Jandis minion to be fake.
Like, you're supposed to pick the 4/6 just because it has lower attack, I think. But then obviously you get into bluff, double bluff, triple bluff, whatever it may be. I think you just click the Watcher here and move on with your life.
Yeah, because if he, what he needs to do is, Alutemu's like, wow, he thought for a while he must be trying to bluff me, and pick the Soul Shard Lapidary. But then Stas is like, ooh, Alutemu's gonna think, because I took a long time, that I'm gonna try and bluff him. So instead, I'm gonna double bluff him, and I'm gonna pick the Amber Watcher because he thinks that I'm gonna try and bluff him. And then Alutemu's going to think, ooh, Stas is a smart guy. He's going to think that I think that he's going to try and bluff me because he's taking a long time to think about it. So he's not going to pick the Amber Watcher, which means he's going to pick the Soul Shard Lapidary. But then he's not going to pick the Soul Shard Lapidary and pick the Amber Watcher. And now my turn's over.
Yeah, and he's already then committed 2 of the classic blunders. He has chosen the wrong minion and fought a board war in Asia. Truly embarrassing.
Yep. Well, I mean, Aldor Truthseeker was, with this hand, probably the best thing that Alutemu could have hoped for.
Let me
At least to get something online after he so cold-heartedly threw the coin away.
Yeah. And now which minion he guesses is actually a pretty big deal to hope to try and get the one. He might just go Jandis, weirdly enough, to get something off the board.
Ah, Stas's play paid off. He thought a long time about Jandis, which scared Alutemu. Didn't even want to try.
Probably correct.
All right. Secret passage. Let's see what's in the box. That's
okay. That's reasonable. I mean, even if he hadn't got the one thief, he could just step the cat. But either way, Fireball here, great. That's more damage. I think you're happily going to gobble that up.
Oh, devolving missiles. Ugh.
That's pretty
insane.
good. That's pretty good in this matchup. You are always taking that.
Yeah.
You could argue that you're supposed to step the cat now at this point because like you have enough spells and you just need like minions to play. But I guess even then, actually, the spells are just pretty good.
It's the secret passage, right? So he has a lot of minions in the other side of his hand.
Yeah, true.
2 Edwins.
Very true. Which looks like why he's holding on to the One Thief for an extra combo activator. Very smart.
Yep. Pretty strong turn, I'd say.
And so now you can give them a bunch of skeletons while summoning Librams. Libram of Hope, I guess, being the best you've got.
And you could get jibby with it.
Nah. I don't like it.
Sorry. This is an insane-looking hand.
As in insanely powerful, or just if you showed this to
Yes,
someone in
insanely
2015, they would die.
They'd be like, hand looks weak. Those Edwins cost 4 mana.
And they don't even have stealth.
Yeah. How do you ever play it? It won't even kill a Chewin Yeti.
Which, to be fair, they could play very easily on turn 1, which was actually pretty good.
Yeah. Well, the broomstick's gone, so it's going to be pretty tough to fight back on this board outside of the Libram with Pentflingers.
I think you just got to go for another Libram of Hope. Like,
oh, man.
Like, if you go for Libram of Justice, you have to leave your Penflingers on the board. Are you winning the game in any reality at that point? Like, I think you just have to pray for a Barov off the top, or I guess just like another spell to activate your hand. Okay, sure. Yikes, what is this?
Wait, what?
So he's going Broomstick after copying the Gibbling? Okay, I did not see this line. This is very creative from Alutemo.
Oh, wow, okay.
This is pretty clever. Fair enough. That was a cool line.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that was really good. Killed off his... Did he kill off his Salzbrad? No. What happened? He just shot his own thing with the pen flare. I can't look at the history. I tried.
Yeah, he shot his own Salit's Pride and then got the guaranteed broom, I think, at that point as well.
Yeah. Ah, the Mask of Cthulhu.
Yeah, there is no debate in my mind whatsoever about
Just
what
rip
you
it right now.
Sounds good to me.
Does he have a dagger equipped? Or is he pushing damage this turn? Because that sets up for the fireball outside of Libram of Hope, right?
That's true. That is true. Playing the Mask while there are no minions on board is a pretty big deal. But I don't know, like Hooked Scimitar Edwin, like you can push a whole bunch of damage whilst also developing board. Like anything you do here is just disgustingly strong. Yeah, that's true.
Now he has a check to Libram of Hope if it does come out by having an 8/8 on board.
Yeah.
If Libram of Hope comes out, Alutemu would go up to 17. So it's not quite lethal on board because likely Penflingers will be able to clear up this flick. So it would just be damage from hand, but it's pretty darn close. And Alutemu is starting to run out of stuff. It doesn't look like he's going to have an opportunity to play Lady Liadra and then wait a whole turn to get the Libram of Hopes back. And there hasn't even been any Libram Librams of Wisdom played this game, so no way to try and make some fancy use with these Penflingers in second Libra of Justice. It's going to be tough for him to keep clearing boards turn after turn after turn.
So the best that you're going to get then is, I guess, your second Libram of Justice. Like, it feels awful to play it, but you can just go Libram, Penflinger, Libram, summon an 8/8, clear off the Edwin, swing your weapon into the Whirl Kick, I suppose, and just pray that that's enough. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
It's the best he's got.
I don't think it's going to be enough, though. I think with Devolving or Prize Plunderer, Mask, Head Crack, another weapon, however you want to go about it here, I'm sensing a lot of different lethals.
Yeah.
Even with Sandhoof just to taunt you, it's still not enough for Alutemu. And again, TJ, we see the Paladin. It didn't even feel like the Rogue beat it. It just felt like the Paladin beat itself. It didn't offer any kind of resistance whatsoever. It just rolled over.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at sort of the last couple turns from Staz and think, oh my gosh, Rogue's insane. Look at all that damage. But he had like a 1/4 on the board for the first 5 turns of the game. And that was it, essentially. His lackeys were getting picked apart. So, Alutemu, he did the best with what he was given with that Paladin, but wasn't even close to enough as Libram Paladin falls once again. And the upside for Alutemu in this series is that Staz also has a Libram Paladin. And it's also, his decks are the OTK Demon Hunter as well as his own Whirl Kick Rogue are also good matchups. So I honestly think that this could come down to a Libram Paladin mirror matchup, or at least that will be one of the pivotal games in this series if it were to happen, right? I mean, who can win that one?
That's how it works. Time is a flat circle, and always in these Conquest metagames, we see the weakest deck coming up against the mirror often decides how these series go. Obviously, you have to still be able to pilot your good decks well enough to win with them, which, I mean, I think we can agree quite clearly Staz, while he wasn't presented with much of a threat, he played that game pretty much perfectly for the most part. There weren't really any glaring errors that I could see, despite it being obviously a very easy game for him. And so now for Alutemu, he of course has the Paladin that he needs to win with. The only real difference between these two lineups is which style of combo deck they are going for, because it's the much more traditional in this metagame OTK Demon Hunter for Alutemu, whereas on the other side, the Tempo ETC Warrior for Staz. And I mean, they're kind of interesting decks in how they could match up against each other, because this version of ETC, I am a fan of this version as opposed to the Control variant, which we saw more historically, just because I think it's a little bit less dependent on hitting exactly the combo with ETC. You can just win by tempoing out, which means that you can put a lot of pressure even on the other OTK decks like OTK Demon Hunter and force them to expend their combo cards.
Yeah, the downside is that if you're not able to get that early tempo, then sometimes you don't even have minions to attack in with ETC to do the full combo. It's much more harder to do it from hand unless you're able to stick minions the turn prior, because then that obviously attacking face also still counts as a rush minion. If you try and go for the amass large amounts of armor game plan, which we've seen players try but not be super successful at, because usually if you're just amassing armor like that with Risky Skipper, Armor Smith, Bloodsworn Mercenary, one, you're giving up your ability to combo later on because you're giving up your Bloodsworn Mercenaries. And two, you're not putting on much pressure, which means you're just giving the OTK Demon Hunter time to set up an even bigger OTK. It's not always that simple, because sometimes you just don't get discounted combo pieces and you're limited on the amount of damage. But the sky's the limit, Derek.
Truly. I do think though, up against the Whirl Kick Rogue that we see here from Alutemu, going with what is I wouldn't call it an outdated list, but definitely there have been a couple of tinkerings since this list became popular. Players have experimented a lot with taking out the Nitro Boost poison I've seen, as crazy as that may seem, and putting in Edwin, as we see missing from Alutema's list. Putting in Penflinger I've seen quite a lot as well, which can be very, very powerful. But there is still a somewhat simplistic beauty to this deck, where you're just going for full-on aggression. You have the Eviscerates, Whirl Kicks to generate more damage, and the Nitro Boosts. There's a lot of aggressive potential, which may be necessary because, again, this tempo version of ETC Warrior, while it is a very tempo-heavy deck, it does have the combo in the late game. And with Rogue, you have to get the win quickly, or eventually they're just going to combo you.
Yep. And it's the one thing that I like about, say, this variation over the control variation is just the fact that it feels like you have more agency in each individual game. You're not kind of just sitting there trying to remove every board, waiting for a way to piece together your combo. You're usually able to make some proactive plays. Even early on, you have like Warmaw Challenger and Sword Eaters to kind of get the ball rolling. But let's get into it. Alutemu throws away Jandis. I guess with a decent early curve, that's okay. I don't know. I'm a Jandis keeper.
I'm a Jandis keeper as well, TJ. I was definitely going to be holding on to that. Just because with this hand, because you have the Foxy Fraud, you don't even have to earmark the coin to activate Miscreant. You already have the combo activator in hand. And I think it's just, alongside Questing Adventurer, it's one of the very few ways in your deck to massively amp up the amount of damage on your board.
Well, it does find questing, so I guess Alutemu does have some way to try and get some powerful early contests. The big question is, how will Alutemu sequence these things? Could go for like Foxy Fraud, Coin Evil Miscreant this turn just to go maximum tempo. Wow.
Oh, is this really the play? I'm pretty shocked by this, in all honesty. Like, he had strong follow-up no matter what with Whirl Kick plus One Thief or just lackeys, but a lot of the time I don't even want to go for this play even if I don't have a Questing Adventurer in hand. And with now, his ability to get that juiced up really big in the early game is quite significantly diminished.
Yeah, puts a lot of faith in getting decent lackeys going into the next turn to try and hold on to board presence. Does have Faceless and can get the One Thief online too.
Okay, that's a decent draw.
Alternatively, we could go Whirl Kick Master One Thief.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at to get yourself... you can know what spell you're looking at playing next turn with the Questing plus Prep. But at the same time, there's a very decent chance that you're just leaving your Whirl Kick to die after only one card of value.
Yeah. And going into turn 4, there's just multiple ways to clear off that 1/2. Sword Eater, Reaper Scythe, both in hand.
Yeah.
The Bone Shore Brawler is sick.
That's a real nice outcome. Exactly what you're looking for. He's prioritizing tempo very heavily, you can see in the early game, both on his last turn and starting off with the Faceless Lackey here, which, is to an extent in keeping with what I've been saying, that you do got to put your pedal to the metal very quickly in this deck.
I think you play the Whirl Kick Master.
Really?
Yeah, what are you worried about?
It dying.
To what?
I guess there's not much, but it just doesn't do much. Like the Lackey and the One Thief does effectively the same thing anyway. Are you going to get too much value out of it in the next few turns?
Yeah, but you could go Lackey One Thief next turn. I don't know.
True. Yeah, that is true. It's a close.
And then with the prep in hand, you might be able to prep out something. I mean, look at this. Look at what his turn would have been. I guess he could just play... Wait, no, because if he had the Whirl Kick Master on board, he could go Questing Adventurer, One Thief, Prep, Eviscerate, find some combo cards along the way. I mean, obviously this is results-oriented thinking, which is a a trap that I tend to fall into every day of my entire life.
But who knows if you'll fall into it tomorrow, given that you don't go off of past evidence.
Yep.
So many options.
Yeah, so I mean, the main thing that I take umbrage with in this game plan for Alitemu is there are many ways that he could have got questing online a couple of turns ago. You know, be it by delaying the quest, the miscreant for a turn, or even going for your line, as you were saying, where you get the world kick online and try and bank your mana so that you can go with a bunch of questing stuff this turn. Like, in a way, what he's going for makes sense because he's going for one uber questing instead of like a 5-5 or a 6-6 earlier on. But it does take a little bit more time to get online, and I'm still yet to be certain that I agree with his line.
Yeah. He is going to lose out to tempo here. Staz has a lot of options going next turns to take the board and hold on to it. Blood Bowl Brute this turn allows him to clear off most of the board, and then next turn, Reaper Scythe Cutting Class is not only some immediate card draw, it also puts him in a position where he can clear off even quite large board states without too much risk. So I expect to see, if Staz expects development, I expect to see a swing, even though these 1-2s are not super threatening.
I'm not 100% sure on the mana, but I think he actually had a stronger play potentially available to him of going with Skipper, Bloodsworn Mercenary, and then a 1-mana Blood Boil Brute. Obviously, even if you can do that, it's not necessarily the correct thing to do because you use Bloodsworn on a 1-3
So many options.
Warmaul Challenger instead of a big juicy Blood Boil Brute. But it's still something to consider that he could have gone a bit more all in on this turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not as good. I think this is probably better all in all.
Yeah, Reaper Scythe Cutting Class, hit the Evil Miscreant, trade over it, push 5. This is quite good.
Yeah, the only thing I guess you're looking at is you do really want to play Bloodsworn on this turn, but I mean, that Reaper Scythe just looks so clean here.
Well, he could go Wormaul Challenger and Bloodsworn Mercenary. You push to 5, you have a lot more development, because you'd push 1 extra damage this turn.
Yeah.
You'd have a 1-8 on board, an extra 2-2 on board.
Flaws are your strength.
But not the extra card draw. I guess the Reaper Cutting Class can always happen, whereas Bloodsworn Mercenary can't always happen. It requires that kind of specific scenario to happen. So yeah, I actually like the Bloodsworn Mercenary better here. Even though obviously it's part of the combo, you know.
Yeah.
You're just kind of trading over the 5-7. It's still good. Still gives him a good hold on the board. A little bit of extra damage. Gets him closer.
Very juicy play coming down, though, now in a prep deep freeze, which I like a lot. There was, you know, some things that you could start messing around with questing, steps, secret passage, but this is just pretty much guaranteed to be stronger than all of that. But Staz has such a beautiful play with this line of just development from Alitemu. No removal whatsoever, all these damaged minions in play, and he can just draw the rest of his deck now.
What now?
Huh.
Okay, I can see this being reasonable. He's able to clear the board now.
Yeah. So I think maybe Shield of Honor could have changed his turn. That's why he went with the Rage first to make sure that he gets this active, or anything for 1 mana could have changed his turn, I suppose.
What now?
How many damaged minions would there have been on the board if he attacked in after the Battle Rage? There'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Blood Bowl Brute still wouldn't have been 1. I'm trying to think of what other 1 mana things would have changed his turn. But it looks like it was just a Shield of Honor. So still very powerful board. Staz diffused that quite nicely.
He did, but that is a a very powerful draw on the other side. I think having a target that both activates your World Kick and is a very strong target for Shadow Step means that we could see, you know, questing World Kick, Prize Plunderer to kill off the 1-2, step it again. It's, I guess, pretty unlikely that it's actually able to kill off the 5-7 or even the 4-8 on this turn, but it's, you know, still a reasonable amount of tempo, I suppose.
Give me a quest.
World Kick and hope that one of these combo cards you pick up is another Prize Plunderer.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Ooh, that's a good one.
Or Brain Freeze, that's fantastic. And that's the 5th spell, right? So you Shadow Step, Brain Freeze to 4-8, and then Prize Plunder the...
Yeah, that's perfect.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that works out.
Whew, face frozen as well, all big minions taken off the board. It's going to be fairly difficult, actually, for Staz to be able to clear off this questing. And all of a sudden, with a secret passage kept in hand, hooked scimitar now available, SI7 as well, the aggression for Alutemu has just been unlocked in one fell swoop.
Yeah. However,
well, he has 4 shots at Barov, I suppose, to just instantly deal with this whole board.
nope. Doesn't hit it.
He does not. I mean, there's Broom available, so there are clears here. They're just pretty expensive.
What now?
And whatever he's going to do, it has to be now.
I'll show you who's boss.
Like, now. Because this server, like, has gotten players before already.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, this is a full mana utilization, develops quite a big board, clears off the World Kick Master, does leave the questing adventure on board.
Yeah.
But I think this is the best use of, best reaction to the situation that could have had without using that broomstick, because I still feel like that broomstick, if you're falling too far behind on board no matter what you do, then the broomstick is the one piece that maybe lets you sneak out a victory later on in the game.
Yeah, that's true. It is the one copy of Broom in the deck, so he can't just throw it out, even as some people are playing 2 copies of Broom. But yeah, I agree with you completely. Keeping the combo intact feels very important at this point still. Ooh, I think he was gearing up to just go Foxy and then second passage on this turn. That Cartert Defender looks like it may have swayed him a little, but even so, he's going for maximum cards played in a single turn. We're now obviously looking for Wand Thief. Evil Miscreant is a very nice draw as well. Swindle, fantastic.
What about all of it?
All of it sounds good to me.
Should have the hand space on the other side because there's only 4 actual cards added to it.
Yeah.
Nothing to really use the prep. Actually, it is 10 cards in hand.
Yeah, exactly. Overdraws here, which is kind of why I was looking at just going for double Lackey, because it does also increase your output of pressure onto the board a little bit as well.
Yeah.
But obviously that is tremendously difficult to calculate when you have only 5 seconds left in your turn.
Yeah. All right. So this could actually be a very powerful turn for Staz. Could go the Bloodsworn Mercenary. I guess you'd Ethereal Lackey first because that makes the Bloodsworn Mercenary free.
I mean, this could just be lethal.
free.
If he hits Battle Rage here or some kind of card draw, he could hit ETC and then just end the game on the spot. Ooh, Sweeping Strikes?
So the
Blood Boil? That's disgusting.
yeah, and the blood will be free. Whoa. Could even Guardian Ult Merchant it.
Whoa, disgusting. Okay, again, he's just got to get moving very quickly now. The rope is right down at the end. It's, doesn't feel perfectly optimal. He could have damaged his minion a little bit less, cleared off some other minions off the board. An error, of course. I think he didn't get the attack in, didn't get all of his mana spent. Quite a lot wrong with that turn, but all in all, good enough to clear the questing off the board and not die.
Yeah, the ideal turn for that would be if he got up and swing in, armored up, and was able to play a Sword Eater, right?
Yeah.
I think that's where the line was, because that's where his mouse was once those actions couldn't be completed at the end of the turn, but didn't quite get there.
Okay, that's not relevant.
This guy's toast.
And just doing what you do as Rogue, developing tempo as much as possible. Witchy Lackey on the Miscreant, Prize Plunderer, do the stuff.
Do the stuff.
Choose soon.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah. Do you need a little bit more value with this hand, I suppose? Alright, some pretty good lackeys, I suppose. Another ethereal lackey you are never going to turn down for the potential of extra damage. Another secret passage as well. Especially as any damage he can get now is a pretty big deal. Staz is kind of close to the OTK, but at the same time, he needs an extra inner rage because he's used his now in order to damage his ETC once it's played. I suppose Orc Merchant could do the same thing, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
he's got it once he draws ETC,
just
right?
ETC, really, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he will have it. I think even if there's a taunt in play. Although, interestingly enough, specifically Kartut Defender can be a very annoying minion for ETC combo because you have to attack into it, but then it heals your opponent. So maybe Alutemu can just squeak out of range because Staz has he's used one Bloodsworn Merchant, and so this isn't the true OTK that can deal like 40 damage with ETC. It's only halfway there. Oh, and he's just disassembling
Wait, what?
He throws down the broom.
All right, so it doesn't set up for a 2-turn lethal because he'd be one off with the Sword Eater, but it does set up for Guardian Aug Merchant, Bloodsworn Mercenary to pretty much make this a done game. He is healthy. But there's a Kidnapper.
Yeah, I mean, that is just absolutely devastating. I think here for Staz, like, the last turn obviously was a pretty big disaster as well because he didn't go for the Sword to get that down. That could have afforded him significantly more damage. And, I mean, now for Alutemu, maybe you just take the Shadow Step and just go Kidnapper and Shadow Step it back to hand. What does Staz do at that point? The ETC does nothing. The Rattlegore is never going to be playable.
Choose soon.
And now Staz, unless he sticks a minion, doesn't have a way to win? Wait, no, he does.
He does?
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
I think it's just over.
It's just... He needs a turn, because he has a Corcoran Elite in his deck.
Okay, that's true. He does have the kind of weird alternate OTK, I suppose.
Yeah, so he needs a Sword Eater and hit face here. But then there's a Kartut Defender.
Yeah.
So Alutemu should be able to just math this out, right? Because the cards left in deck, he's got like ETC, he's got a Shield of Honor. I think Alutemu might be worried about just dying like right now.
Well,
if he had like Inner Rage, Guardian Aug Merchant, right?
He doesn't have Shield of Honor. That's one already used, which is actually a huge amount
he
of
only has
damage.
the one.
cut off from the Corkron Elite. Like now we're looking at only 12 damage that it can do with Inner Rage and copying it. So I mean, Alutemu, in my opinion, really just doesn't have to be that afraid anymore.
All right, well, there's the combo. But Cartoon Defender's there.
I mean, is he just dead before that happens? I guess there's a taunt with Divine Shield in the way, but
yeah.
It's a lot of damage for Alutemu as well.
How much, though, exactly? He would be able to push 5 damage, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15 is what I counted, so not quite there. That would be max damage to face. So he knows what cards are left. Just play the Cartoon Defender. And then Staz is going to realize, yep, I lose the game.
Yeah, you do not oft see any kind of reaction from Staz, but I think this is about as close we're going to get because he realized, you know, it was a messy game, couple of just straight up mistakes, a couple of questionable lines he took in terms of the macro game plan, but in the end, it's just, I think, going to prove to be not enough, and he is going to succumb to this extreme damage.
Is there an Evil Quartermaster left? There's a Lord Barav left. There's a Risky Skipper left, right?
He's just dead before that even matters, right?
Too soon.
I mean, maybe, yeah. From his perspective, you can hope.
Ankar draws the Risky Skipper. You go Risky Skipper Armorsmith, Bloodsworn Mercenary.
Oi, oi, oi. I think you can just concede at that point. You know nothing is getting there anymore.
Yeah.
What now?
And you know what? This is what I've been saying. You know, I was making the point that it comes down to the mirrors of your weakest decks, often defining Conquest, but you've got to be able to seize the opportunities that are presented to you with your stronger decks, and I definitely don't feel like it was done so here by Staz. Like the early game, you and I were saying, I think we liked a lot of what we saw from him with tempoing out the the Blood Boil Brutes, getting them copied as well. It was good understanding of the matchup, but in the end it just didn't come together.
Yeah, but I mean, you also have to, outside of that one turn, it's hard to spot anything, right? Because there's not really a world where you can play against anything that's randomly generated, right?
Yeah.
He would have had lethal this turn if it wasn't for Cartoon Defender. If there was no Kidnapper, the Rattlegore sticks, he very likely wins the game because he's at 30 health the previous turn. So, you know, in a vacuum, looking at pretty much every play except for the Blood Boil Brute turn where he's sweeping strikes, every turn but that turn I still think was quite good. It just so happens that Alutemu had the answers, and sometimes that happens, but you know, maybe he doesn't float 6 mana on that turn. Maybe that turn's a little cleaner for him. The game becomes a little easier, right? Maybe he doesn't have time to generate as many cards, or at least play the cards that he generated like that, and you stick more damage and somehow get there. But now series is tied 1-1. There's the turn right there in question.
Yeah, quite the error indeed. I think from Alutemu in the end, you know, I was kind of seriously advocating for Kidnapper Shadow Step, but I think in the end he realized, okay, I can just make it so if they do ever play Rattlegore again, they're just going to die anyway. It doesn't matter if they can stick it onto the board without me sapping it. Which is, you know, I think already we've seen, for those of you who maybe don't watch Asia Pacific Grandmasters or haven't seen any of Alutemu's very deep runs in Masters Tours last year, he has some very creative lines. He's one of the players who most consistently, I think, can find the weird, intricate technical plays that most certainly casters and I think most other players would also miss.
Yeah, he's the type of player where you look at a player and you're like, wow, that feels slightly inefficient. And then 5 turns later, you look back and go, no, that was actually really good.
Yeah.
Setting things up. Like, even just, was it this game? Yeah, it was this game. He used a coin to a Foxy Fraud Evil Miscreant and then really waited for the questing adventure, right? But by waiting and not trying to go big with the Questing Adventure earlier, it opened up an opportunity for him to prep the deep freeze, which it looked like he was planning for. The prep deep freeze pretty much bought him that one turn where he was able to make the giant questing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where things started to unravel for Staz. So you look at that play and you're like, well, that seemed a little bit inefficient. He had a really slow start, but it was all part of his plan to get to the point where he made a giant questing. And then that was kind of the turning point, the pivotal point for Alutemo in that game. So things like that that make him stand out as a player. But we're acting like he just completely won the series, but we're just tied at 1-1. Both players taking wins with their World Kick Rogue. So we have Libram Paladin plus combo deck left for both players. It's just a different flavor of combo deck for each one.
And I guess taking a look at how both of the combo decks line up against Libram Paladin, I definitely have a bit more experience with OTK Demon Hunter. It's a much more popular deck in the current metagame. And I know you and I were talking about this yesterday. You were saying you definitely favor OTK Demon Hunters to a certain extent. I think based on what we've seen this weekend, obviously, absolutely, I do think the Demon Hunter is going to be in a better spot. But overall, when you take a wider sample size, I think Paladin has some very big minions that are difficult for the Demon Hunter to deal with. These pen flingers coming in turn after turn, it can make it so, you can represent lethal very quickly as the Libram Paladin up against the OTK Demon Hunter. Whereas versus the ETC Warrior there, I'm not entirely sure how the Paladin is going to fare by comparison. At a guess, I would say probably not that well. I think that the Warrior has enough card draw to get through to their combo quickly enough to just kill the Paladin before they're able to get the lethal done.
Yeah, it's tough. I do think, again, more experience with the OTK Demon Hunter. I would say that Alutemo is a little bit better positioned. I do think that the OTK Demon Hunter is just a little more refined than these Tempo ETC decks. Maybe this deck becomes a little better against, say, Zoo Warlock than the OTK Demon Hunter. Some of those faster decks, because I think that it deals with aggro well, and you can take those, play against these aggressive decks and not only be able to deal with their board states with Risky Skipper, but then also make a counter offensive early on, not have to rely on combo. So maybe not so much against Libram Paladin, but we'll see. The ultimate start for Alutemo.
He's got it, man.
Crab Rider into Blessing of Wisdom.
Absolutely disgusting. And this is what the decks have been missing. It hasn't been powerful plays. Really, it's been the card draw. And now Alutemo has buckets of it. He can draw 2 cards on this turn. Salet's Pride into Salet's Pride into Eldor Truthseeker. We finally found it, TJ. A decent hand for Paladin.
Yeah. Well, still Warmaw Challenger, which is going to be able to deal with this Crab Rider, but the damage could be already done. You're right. This is quite the hand coming together. Both Truth Seekers. So we have 2 turns of Salet's Pride to pull all the 1 health minions out of the deck. And then 2 turns of Eldor Truthseeker to make all of these Librams that are now flying out of the deck because there's no more 1 health minions.
I'm telling you, TJ, if the Paladin cannot win this game, it cannot win the matchup. This is as good as it gets for the Paladin. You
I don't know
cannot
about
ask for a
that.
better hand. Really?
As good as it gets. Yeah, he floated a mana on turn 2.
By his
Without
own
the Crab
choice.
Rider. Let's say he hits Eldor Attendant there. Warmaw Challenger comes down on the Crab Rider, and then Eldor Attendant, I guess he still would have played Solid Pride. Yeah, you're right. There just would have been an extra 1/3 on the board, which really wouldn't have made that much of a difference.
Yeah, I don't think you have really anything to complain about here as Alutemo. I mean, it's just hand space now is the real concern. Like, he could go, Salet's plus Broom? I'm not entirely sure how valuable Broom is in the matchup. I would, I guess, say fairly valuable, considering it is very much a tempo matchup in the early game, at least.
Well, that's actually the last... This Salet's Pride will only draw the 1 Broom.
Oh, really? Right, okay. Oh, yeah, there's no Loot Hoarder in this list, is there?
There's no Loot Hoarder. There's a Wild Pyromancer instead. So
right.
Hand space, not a concern with 8 cards in hand. It'll just draw the 1, and then he'll be good. So Not too bad, but this is giving Staz an opportunity to really take control of this game, at least the board state, because he's got cutting class, can develop an evil quartermaster here, and still have a decent-sized board and some decent card draw. There's also an opportunity to take advantage of Battle Rage. He can even get super, not greedy, it could be greedy, by bumping with the Sword Eater, Bloodsworn Mercenary, and then Battle Rage for 4 cards.
I think the one thing that I want to see here from Staz is actually saving the Bloodsworn Mercenaries. I think the full combo in this matchup with ETC, double copy, attack with everything, deal like 40 damage, is pretty crucial. And with the amount of card draw that he's been offered, which is to say as much as he wants, really, you can draw through to that combo very, very quickly. So I am a big fan of the play that Staz just made here.
Yep.
And now, I mean, the world is your oyster. Skipper, I guess Quartermaster into Battle Rage would be too many cards, if anything.
Yeah, because that's 5 cards, and you're putting a lackey in your hand with the Quartermaster. You're only spending 2, so that would burn you, what, 2, 3 cards?
Yeah,
burn you a lot. You have no mana available, so... could Risky Skipper... Draconic Lackey, and then you draw 4 cards, but you're putting a dragon in your hand. So even that is... Oh, no, that would work. Yeah, I mean, you dump a card afterwards, though. Oh, no, it's 5 cards.
Bump one of the minions in, right? First, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah.
You can curate it quite easily to get exactly the amount of cards you want. And I mean, this is just the dream on the other side. I mean, I'm going to say the reverse. If the warrior can't win it with this hand, it can't win the matchup. Because this is perfect. I suppose having run out of card draw now, but even then he got big ol' whelp. It's not even like he's completely dead on draw from this point.
Yeah, and also has nearly every combo piece already. Has double Bloodsworn Mercenary animated Broomstick.
Which means he only needs ETC, Battle, Inner Rage, and 9 mana, or 10 mana with the Guardian Orc Merchant.
Yeah. Which seems quite easy. Yeah. 30 health, still a board that Alutemu still has to deal with before he goes for the big development himself. Has Bloodsworn, or Blood Boil Brute and Sword Eater to buy me more time. Lord Barov for a big board clear. This is looking quite good.
I'm going to throw the book at you.
Okay, I like that Alutemu isn't necessarily overly scared of this board. He doesn't feel it's worth going for the Barov or the Libram yet, which I do think is correct. Those can be saved for more threatening boards later on.
Blood Boil Brute, Ankar.
That sounds good to me.
There's only 1 pirate left, though, because played the Risky Skipper and the Sword Eater, and 1 Sword Eater with 1 Sword Eater in hand. So I believe there's just the
1 Skipper.
The 1 Skipper left.
I mean, that's fine. I think Staz would gladly thin that out and then go for big ol' whelp, hope to find the Battle Rage to go with that extra Risky Skipper.
I guess Evil Quartermaster, Blood Boil Brute. Oh, what?
Okay, hoping to greed it out a bit more, maybe? Yeah, I was definitely more in line with your thinking of just getting the card draw down now and also having a stronger board at the end of it as well.
Yeah. Still clean play, uses a mana, builds a board, just I feel like it could have been stronger.
I wonder.
Hey, loser!
And the Libra of Hope to finish things off.
Yeah, it's
starting to come together for Alutemu, but just still no pressure being dealt. Staz is basically doing whatever he wants turn after turn.
Ooh, the Inner Rage found. I mean, he's a card away from the combo. I suppose it is worth mentioning that Alutemu would have to play enough minions for him to smash the ETCs into, which could very possibly become a part of this game. With no Rattlegore in hand for Staz, at the moment, Alutemu could quite happily just clear everything that Staz plays every turn, and then, I mean, I guess wait until Rattlegore comes and then dies when it does, but he at least isn't going to be dying anytime soon if he doesn't develop a board.
Yeah.
I think Shield of Honor is the cheapest card, and it's also in your deck. Can't be that bad.
But ramming speed. Darn.
You're not wrong there, TJ, but ramming speed. Yeah, this looks good.
Yeah. A lot of pressure. 60 minion on board. Combo's still preserved because of the Guardian Og Merchant, and waiting till 10 with the Guardian Og Merchant also just straight up gives you that extra 6 damage from the 3 ETCs and rushing a minion in, as long as you have the minion to rush it against, which to a certain extent, Paladin's never winning without minions on board. I mean, yeah, sure, they can just pen fling you and keep one minion on board with a Lever of Wisdom that's super small, but that'll be offset by essentially just armor up because you're netting 1 damage a turn. It just won't work against Warrior.
Yeah, and even then, it's the fact that Alutemu is not playing Silas in his Paladin deck, and so Rattlegore, as soon as it comes down, will essentially just end the game if Staz doesn't die on the following turn.
Yeah.
But he's doing what you're supposed to do. You know, he's playing max pen flingers each turn here, clearing the board where possible. And now for Staz, you draw the Pirate, and then you draw a card.
Easy peasy.
Okay, decent draw. So it's a bit awkward here. Alutemu, in a way, wants to have this Lord Barov die so that he can recast the Libram of Wisdom and get it played multiple times for if eventually Lady Liadrin is drawn, so that he can get many, many copies of Libram of Wisdom back. But at the same time, this is 6 damage that could go face on this turn. That would be very, very welcome here for Alutemu's game plan.
Yeah, and you can also play the Devout Pupil to kind of protect this Lord Barov, make it a little bit awkward for Staz to get past it and deal with it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a crossroads this turn as to how he wants to approach it from here on in.
Reporting for duty.
I do love those point hiding station.
A lot of damage.
A lot of damage indeed, and I think the correct decision is made here by Alutemu. You know, deliberately killing your minions so that you can get Libram of Wisdoms, and then maybe Lady Liadrin is drawn, and maybe that's enough damage, or you can just punch them in the head and hope that they don't have the healing. That seems a bit more realistic in terms of a game plan.
Yeah.
What now?
So, I mean, there's the clear, quite obviously, with just skip Barov on this turn, or I guess Barov, Skipper, and then Armor Smith afterwards would probably be a more sensible way to go about it. In which case, just start with the Cutting Class, still a very possible play afterwards.
What now?
We'll even clear off the Mermaid because the Barov Death Rattle. Wait, it's going to clear off everything?
Yeah.
It'll even clear off the Skipper, right? Because both Barovs will.
Right. Yes.
That's actually good for the Armor Smith because it'll gain a little bit more armor, but
Yeah, I think this is
it's going to
fine.
go way off the board.
whether or not he realized this when he made the play, it gains him a whole bunch of armor, which is all he cares about here, really.
Yeah. So now Staz is essentially just looking for ETC.
That's pretty much it. I mean, it depends on what the game plan is, because like just throwing down Rattlegore next turn, if Alutemu doesn't deal with it, he can just go Guardian Orc Merchant, Shield of Honor, copy, and then probably just win the game from there.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as there's enough health on board, there needs to be, what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 health on board. 9 health on board is a full 30 damage. Because the 2 Bloodsworns, the Animated Broomstick, the Guardian Augmenter are all 6 damage, which is 24. And then the first ETC, if it kills itself, is 4 damage and then 2 damage.
Right. Okay.
In succession. So, and that needs 9 health.
I mean, yeah, not necessarily if it's spread across multiple minions, though, right? Because then you can overkill.
Then you can overkill. Yeah.
But yes, in one minion it would need to be that.
And then the Rattlegore's there in these situations
Wings of destruction, they
where your opponent's not really playing minions, but they're not putting that much pressure on you.
Right. So here you just don't have it yet, do you? In which case,
No.
if you
18,
just
19, 20 damage.
if you just play Rattlegore, are you dead to Lady Liadrin off the top is the one thing that you need to be afraid of here for Staz. And I think the answer is just no. There haven't been that many Librams played so far this game. So he should be safe to just go Rattlegore here. Again, I don't see how he has the damage with ETC with just these few minions in play.
Yeah. Is there, this is going to sound weird, but is there even a reason to play Rattlegore?
I mean, it's just your alternate win condition, right? If they don't play any minions and instead just pen fling at you every turn, this wins the game.
Yeah, I suppose.
It also complements the ETC win condition very well, because then that's another 15 damage, right, with the actual Rattlegore attacking face, plus the 6 damage that comes with the ETC copied effect.
Yeah.
So it means they don't even necessarily have to play as many minions next turn for you to win the game. Oh man, it just feels crazy. Like, Alutemu had such a good starting hand. He had so much card draw, and he still has a hand that just does a load of nothing. Like, he's kind of coming close to lethal, I suppose.
Move quickly.
I mean, I honestly think this is a lethal setup for next turn.
I guess so. I guess so, right? Maybe I'm underestimating the power of Paladin.
Yeah, because being able to put these Librams on small minions and then being able to trade them in immediately is what's allowing him. This is... honestly...
6,
Oh.
12, 18, 20. That's just lethal, I think, with Corkron.
Yeah, that's
right?
enough. Yeah.
You go Corkron, Inner Rage, double copy. I think that's just game.
Wait.
I mean, there might be other ways to do it with copying ETC, but the way I see it, that's enough right now.
Wait.
Let's melt some faces.
Okay.
Because it's only 12, 13, 14.
Your flaws.
It's 15, 21. I think this might actually just still be lethal.
Your flaws are your strength.
I mean, I hope it is. The broomstick can attack. Yeah, this is lethal. Because you attack with the broomstick for 1, then it's 12, 15. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, Shield of Honor. Yeah, because he can Shield of Honor that to get the extra
All right,
attack.
okay. Yeah. I think
That's needed. I was so confused because I was like, wait, this isn't enough, right?
I think he could have just cast it on the ETC and that would still have been... sorry, he could have cast it on the Rattlegore and it would still have been lethal. but it's a cool play to see nonetheless, and it does mean that Staz, with a few ways to go about it there, undeniably finds the flashiest way to get lethal there with an opposing Shield of Honor there to get enough hits through. It was a clever lethal.
Yeah, but you're right. If he had just cast it on the Rattlegore, because the Rattlegore also had Rush.
Exactly.
By casting on the Rattlegore, he would have had enough damage. So the Shield of Honor, for some reason, I was thinking he needed the Guardian Og Merchant to damage.
Right.
But drew the Inner Rage, which meant that he had the 1 extra mana, and I was like, he was going for it. I was counting. I was like, I think he's like, what, 3 damage, 6 damage off? But didn't have to use that because he drew the Inner Rage. So nicely spotted by Staz. And once again, Libram Paladin takes the L. And again, I feel like this is going to come down to a Libram Paladin mirror to end it, because Staz is going to play Libram Paladin here. Alutemu, if he does play the OTK Demon Hunter, whether he decides to play it now or hold it for the last matchup, the Libram Paladin is going to be the game of this match that feels like it's going to determine the series, or be the most likely to.
It does indeed. I suppose there was a glimmer of hope there for Alutemu in that while what he was doing did not look especially impressive, I will admit, it was deceptively strong. You know, he was chipping away for like 7-9 damage a turn, which was getting close to having lethal, especially as Staz had exhausted all of his armor potential. He did, in the end, of course, have the lethal, even if Alutemu had not played a single minion on that turn, I think would still have got there. So who knows? Maybe the Paladin with these good draws is closer than it may think. But it's not the metagame, it feels like, for the Paladin right now. It would much rather face these kind of tempo/aggro decks, I would guess. Because at that point, once you play a Libram of Hope, or you have a Devout Pupil on board, they just roll over and die. There's nothing they can really do against it. Whereas these OTK decks very happily shrug off these minions with all their removal.
Yeah, and even when they have to be a little bit creative with how they kill, which, you know, that's exactly what happened right there. It wasn't just the combo from hand. Had to figure out a way to get a little bit of extra damage on the board. But last deck remaining again is that Libram Paladin, and the Silas Darkmoon with the decks that remain, which is the Libram Paladin on the other side, which can have an impact. It will at least have to force Alutemu, once you get to that stage of the game, 7 mana plus, has to think about how he positions his minions. It just doesn't have as great of effect as it would against maybe some other decks in the metagame. Like if he were to play against his own decks and play against any deck with Rattlegore, to be able to steal that one big kind of minion. But we shall see.
Yeah, I think that the Silas, you know, we know against the Demon Hunter it is completely useless. It's a 7-mana 4/4. It's really the best that you're ever going to be able to get in that situation. But against the Paladin, like you said, at the very least, it's going to confuse Alutemu. It's going to force him to think a little bit more about the easy turns, because very often with that deck, you know, you will just throw down all your buff cards onto a minion. You won't think about it because there's no silence in the Paladin deck. There's no way to discover a silencing effect. But with the steal that comes from Silas Darkmoon, you all of a sudden may be holding back on your buffs. Maybe that weakens your Lady Liadrin. Maybe it all just compounds to the point where just the threat of Silas Darkmoon is more than the actual impact of playing it itself. And that's why I think that, you know, Staz is in a good position in a couple of ways here. Not only does he have a chance to beat the Demon Hunter with his Paladin, which is very doable, despite how weak Paladin has been looking, he then, I think, has a slight advantage come the mirror as well.
All right, well, oh, great one. It's time for your favorite deck, the OTK Demon Hunter.
Yeah, I have now thrown a 100% lethal in testing, falsely accused a seasoned veteran of Hearthstone of missing lethal with this OTK Demon Hunter, despite the fact that he was valiantly trying to find some other way of hitting lethal. Who knows what will happen today, TJ?
The sky is the limit for possibilities here at day 2 of Masters Tour Ironforge. And this is just the first match of the day. There's a lot of other matches happening across round 6. Maybe we'll be able to cover a few of those once we wrap up with this one. But both these players making sure that They're taking their time and making sure that they're not only winning the game, but also looking incredibly smart on the broadcast. Now that's an opening hand right there, Derek. Whew. Aldor Attendant, Libra of Wisdom, first day of school. That's a 3 keep for Staz. Another Aldor Attendant. You see his eyebrows raise.
I cannot wait to read.
The full mull on the other side, I do think is a little interesting from Alutemu. Like, obviously, Il'gynoth, get that the hell out of here. You don't want that until the late game. But he had a pretty decent curve. You know, double jump, coin weapon. Then you have the card draw of Spectral Sight. But I think that's honestly deceptively one of the weakest parts of my play with this deck is, you know, ignoring the fact that I will mess up the combo come the end. In the mulligan decision, so many cards look good with this deck, but you really just have to realize most of it you're going to hit at some point anyway in the deck because you have so much card draw that you just want to hit the power cards of Skull for the most part.
Mm-hmm. What do I do with all these one drops?
I cannot wait to read these.
You play them.
Does anyone else
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, holding back on the wisdom, I think is, or sorry, the blessing of wisdom as opposed to the librum of wisdom, I think is very wise. You have a decent chance of getting 2 draws as opposed to 1 out of it.
Yeah. All right, heading back over to Alutemu's side. Moarg Artificer picked up. Looks like there probably is going to have to be some type of defensive Moarg played early on in this game, unless Alutemu picks up a Immolation Ore quite soon. If Staz keeps going with an early aggressive curve, I don't think he's going to be able to afford being super greedy with these plays. I wonder what the play is this turn, though, because there's... Unless it's exactly Spectral Sight, Illidari Studies is not looking for anything specific. And if he is looking specifically for Spectral Sight, he also gives Staz opportunity to run away with this because he's not clearing any minions off board. But then at the same time, if he clears off this 2-3 with the Lever of Wisdom, then he's just re-putting the 2 power back on another minion. Oh, Crab Rider Blessing of Wisdom!
That's pretty bad.
Libra Paladin is the best deck in the metagame right now. Look at this. How do you contest this type of early game? Another first day of school. The 1-drops are going to keep on coming. Wall Pyromancer, get that out of here.
The day that Libram Paladin loses a single game of Hearthstone is the day I stop playing. I don't want to be there when that happens.
Me too.
Here. Well, I mean, you have multiple ways to spend your mana efficiently here, right? Like I-Beam Hero Power and then I guess Philosophy, just to complete the mana expenditure. If you don't like the look of casting that in its weakest position, just to copy a 2/4 Moarg, I guess you could Illidari Studies first, but I don't think you're going to be playing anything off of it.
No. With both Aldors played, killing the 1-3 is the same as killing the 2-3. In fact, slightly better, because it gives one less Libram played, as well as the Libram can't go back into the hand for pen flicker damage. So I do like the I-Beam there on the 1-3 instead of the 2-3.
I grow impatient.
Well, Crimson Sigil Runner, I think feels decent. You could go Coin Dreadlord's Bite, I suppose, but I think with this hand, having only Chaos Strike for card draw feels much too shaky by my count.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, that's a Yeti with Divine Shield and Taunt.
Nice.
I do love a good study session.
Gets to push another 2. So it's starting to look a little scary for Alutemu, who's running a little bit low on card draw.
I guess, yeah. He just needs a little bit more mana, and then he's moving towards, you know, the powerhouse clears. I mean, he's getting close to it already, actually, in all honesty, with, you know, Moarg, Fellscream Blast, Immolation Ore. It's not quite there, but it's close.
And because of that, Alutemu can afford to take a little bit more damage.
Demons.
Not too much more, but does have Moarg, Soul Cleave, Philosophy, or Fellscreen Blast, excuse me, to fall back on.
It's a really tough old turn.
Yeah. Because I can't really figure it out, I just want a Chaos Strike and see what happens.
I don't know if I'm on board with that plan.
Well, what else?
I mean, Moarg Immolation Aura is like the... You start with that in your head, you spend the whole turn trying to find something better because that sucks, but then you play it because everything else was just even more awful.
Like, it barely... It takes 2 power off board. It uses your Moarg with Philosophy in hand that's now stranded.
Like I said, it's a bad play, but it's the least bad play, I think, here. Because otherwise...
Yeah, but what, if you Chaos Strike and then you take a couple hits, you're okay with taking a couple hits, right? It's 7 damage, and then try and find a different game plan than a bad game plan.
But then you've used your Chaos Strike, which is a pretty premium piece of removal, especially when comboed with Eldrazi Warblades later on nothing. Like, are you going to smack into the Divine Shield there? Then you're taking way too much damage, in my opinion. Like, you're close to dying on turn 6 or 7 then.
Well, Spectral Sight's a nice pickup off the top.
You can take the 2 out of 3 to just be able to clear off the important minion on the board here with Soul Cleave to try and hit the Devout Pupil, I suppose. But yeah, that doesn't feel especially strong. Oof.
Everything is just slightly awkward, right?
Yeah, it's just not clean, no matter how you slice it. Like, you can go Chaos Strike and then throw Glaive just to make sure that you are guaranteed able to clear off the Devout Pupil. Yeah, okay.
Whew. Well, I mean, the bright side for Alutemu is that Staz is pretty much out of stuff. But Lady Liadrin picked up. There's a Blessing of Wisdom and just the 2 Libra of Wisdom right now, I think. I think he's only been able to play it twice, just on the Aldor Attendant and now on the Devout Pupil.
Yeah, that's my count as well. Which, to be fair, is something we didn't mention at the time. That's a very deliberate choice by Alutemu to I-beam the smaller Aldor Attendant so that Staz wasn't able to play the buff again. It was a very smart play that we didn't pick up on at the time.
But what the thought process was for Wild Pyromancer, maybe thinking, well, if I play the Liadrin next turn, I can't dump the Wisdoms because then it would kill the Wild Pyromancer or damage my stuff. But at this point, I mean, he's just out of things. He just needs to play more things onto the board.
That's a nice top deck, though. You know, any way to clear off everything from the board this turn is huge. Obviously, given that he's close to dying, and also just because Lady Liadrin can, of course, come down for a couple of extra buffs next turn.
I grow impatient.
The skull sitting in between the 2 Fellscreen blasts.
I mean, I guess the other way you could go about it is you could go everything from the left-hand side of your hand to try and play Skull next turn and hold on to the Immolation Ore instead. Like, you could go Fellscream, Coin, Philosophy, Soul Cleave, which would guarantee you a clear, even if you have to end up tanking the Devout Pupil, which, upon closer inspection, I'm kind of liking the look of it even more here.
Is it that important, though, to get the skull discount for the first skull?
It kind of feels
Suppose
that
so.
way. Yeah. I think this is very smart. Like, the way he did it was slightly optimized from what I was saying. You don't have to go coin philosophy this turn because you might get the Moarg off the top. But the thinking of doing it this way instead of the immolation, I think is fantastic matchup understanding.
Yeah.
Shadrach will not fall in.
But Lady of the Adrin played, that'll get him back the 2 Libra of Wisdoms as well as the Blessing of Wisdom. So now 3 total with 1 Penflinger in hand. Alutemu still needs a lot of time before he pieces together this combo, so not even super healthy at that. Oh! Okay, well there's still I-Beam, 1 I-Beam, 1 Philosophy, 1 Skull, right?
I don't hate the idea of just starting with double jump. If you do manage to hit the skull, then you just jam it and you're on cloud 9.
Yep.
I grow impatient.
There's also Spectral Sight, actually.
Oh, okay. I mean, you could deviate away from the skull on this turn, I suppose, and try and hit a Moarg off the Spectral Sight, but yeah, you're piddling around with cards that aren't the powerhouse of the deck. Let's get this skull played.
I grow impatient.
Oh, he's not outcasting it, really? After all that? Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
There's no way you do the last turn and then don't outcast this skull.
I mean, if you change your mind and think that you made a mistake last turn, then I guess you could. But with the way this worked out, I'm sure Alutemu is going to be a very happy boy indeed.
Yeah.
But it's still scary. He's tanking a lot here. This is a lot of damage coming through. The Penflingers alone are, I mean, getting us surprisingly close to lethal here.
Yeah, so I think he opened with Penflinger.
Was that 7, 10? You can squeak out like 12 damage, I think, on this turn. If you commit
go for that?
Not necessarily. I'm just kind of figuring out what the max you can do would be.
Yeah. Or
maybe it's just
go
Libram of
Penflinger Hope. Yeah. Penflinger Hope, because, and then you, do you play the Libra of Wisdoms? No, because those are only netting 2 damage now, whereas next turn they net 4. I guess it's the same thing, but the upside is if you draw the second Penflinger, then those Libra of Wisdoms turn into more damage next turn.
Yeah, that's very true. There is no silence in the deck as well, it's worth saying, but they can potentially generate it off the second Illidari studies. But he is just going for it here instead, going for maximum board development, and of course drawing an extra card while he's at it.
Yeah.
This is kind of looking like it's got to be lethal, I don't know, on this turn for Alutemu to survive, which I don't think he's going to be able to get, but...
Nope.
Like, his Moargs essentially cost 1 because he has the Raging Fell Screamer. Illidari Studies can get Skull, which obviously isn't going to win him the game right now, but it might keep him alive.
He needs Moarg and I-Beam that's not far right.
Right, but...
And...
that would be his second Moarg then if he played that though, right? How does he win the game from there?
Okay, well then Philosophy is the other card.
Right.
He would need exactly like Moarg into I-Beam into Philosophy. No, because then he couldn't I-Beam the same turn because he'd have to outcast Philosophy. But with that status, we finally see Libram Paladin take a win, and it took that kind of start from the Paladin with that kind of start from the OTK Demon Hunter, which, oh geez, oh man.
I mean, he can't believe it. He's even more surprised than we are, I think, that he was actually able to win that game. Like, Paladin, as we've been saying, has been looking disastrous. But finally, you know what the kind of hand was that actually won the game? It wasn't faffing about with pen flingers over and over again, this late game combos. It was just a curve deck. It was playing the biggest thing it could each turn, which turned out to be significantly stronger in that instance than any of the other things we've seen. Kind of one of the reasons why I think a lot of players have been leaning towards having just stronger curve cards in the deck rather than messing around with all these card draw effects as well.
Yeah, this honestly felt like Staz was playing like Zoo Warlock. That's how his opening was. He was like playing small minions, buffing up his minions, life tapping, i.e. First day of schooling. And then on turn 7 just played his Flesh Giant right there. That's what it felt like. I guess that's what it takes.
Yeah, who'd have thought it, hey? And a big victory for Staz. I want to congratulate him. He's a player that I was very sad to see relegated out of Grandmasters, even though he's one of the players that I've disagreed with, I feel like, the most over his stay in Grandmasters in terms of his plays. I am always shown up the most when I disagree with his plays, because he always just wins, even when he takes the weirdest lines. Obviously, his run of luck ended this season, or this last season of Grandmasters, where he was relegated out, but he is eternally a very entertaining player to watch, so I hope that he can go all the way here.
Yeah. Now moving up to, I believe, 5-1 in the standings, so in a good position. Now with the top 16 cut instead of top 8, we're going to be seeing more players, more of those players at 7-2 trying to make it in. It's not quite like a true double elimination like it's been in past Masters Tours, effectively. But that wraps up our first match that we're going to be showcasing for round 6, but we still have some round 6 matches left to be finished, so we're going to go to a quick break, but when we come back, we'll have some more action being covered for round number 6 here at Masters Tour Ironforge.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Masters Tour Ironforge. We are going to be bringing you more matches from round number 6 as we continue on today through the Swiss. And of course, end the day with the round of the top 16 matches, which should be pretty sick. I'm Raven. Joining me, of course, is Gia. And we're about to kick this match off. But before we dive straight in, Gia, what did you make of yesterday now that we've had one whole day of the tournament behind us?
Yesterday was definitely a mixed bag. We started off the day with very long and grueling series, even a priest mirror in there. But towards the middle of the day, we were seeing the other end of the meta, which is very, very diverse. So you also have these very quick aggro decks, Rogue being the premier one, even some people rocking Zoo in there. And my personal favorite of this meta is the Burn Mage that I have loved to see every time it's been on stream. And yet again, we're going to be having some slightly off-the-wall picks, I believe, in this series.
Yeah, I mean, we can see even right now this Soul Demon Hunter, right? Like, this is not a deck. It was a deck that was probably the most popular deck we had in a metagame, maybe a couple of metagames ago now. But with this, I'm very, very interested to see how it performs, because the weird thing to me, at least, Gia, is this deck never really got bad. It never just got any worse with any particular big nerfs or anything. It's just other decks got better. So what do you make of Soul Demon Hunter in the current meta now?
I will say it did get a little bit worse because of the nerfs to Blade Dance and Charge Shatter Mystic, and we're seeing that this list does not include Charge Shatter Mystic altogether, and I think that was one of the key cards that really allowed Soul Demon Hunter to just spend 2 whole turns going face with Marrow Slicer into Soul Shard Lapidary, because you had that one card that can pretty much blow up an entire aggressive board. But now that it's kind of expensive, I do think that weakened the deck quite a bit. However, it still has a lot of the damage still intact on top of Bladed Lady, which is a more recent inclusion. Of course, before the mini set, it was even stronger. But now I think there's still quite some room for this deck to shine in up against decks that don't quite have that much healing, especially.
Yeah, and one of the benefits, of course, you mentioned Blade Dance and Samore we got nerfed, but the addition of Relentless Pursuit, I think, is actually a really big deal, because a lot of the time, Blade Dance was often used to swing into a big minion if needed, and then you Blade Dance the rest of its health away, whereas Relentless Pursuit basically allows you to do the same thing and not taking damage, as well as just a lot of the time you want it for just extra damage to go face. So it definitely did hit some nerfs, but it's still could be quite a contender here, whereas it looks like the other play we have here is Blaze. So, a play we've known very, very well over the past year or so as a dominant force in European Hearthstone right now, and also just an incredible play speed, which I am just looking forward to see if that is just going to continue. But here, G, it looks like going against the Demon Hunter is going to be this Highlander Priest.
Yes, I also wonder if his play speed will be intact, because Highlander Priest is an intricate deck on certain turns, especially when you're playing Raise Dead or Renew, or just cards that discover, and so all of your decisions are branching decisions at the beginning of the turn. It's very difficult to optimize, and on top of that, there's of course Elucia, which can make for very, very complicated mid or end game decisions. So maybe Blaze will not be pulling out all the stops in terms of play speed, but play quality I definitely expect to still be up there. However, we are still viewing in the middle of this series, so you could already see there that Piñas has gotten a win with his Rogue, which was an aggressive deck, and right off the bat taking a win I think is not a major surprise, because Rogue is pretty well positioned, I believe, against Blaze's entire lineup. With, aside from this Highlander Priest, he has an Ohite Demon Hunter and Highlander Druid, which is on the slow end of things.
Yeah, we are going into, this is going to be game number 2 of this series, as we do, dip into games where they're at for the cover ones. But I can just confirm, Gia, that regardless of deck, even when it was tons of Priest mirrors back in Grandmasters last year, it did not slow Blaze down. It was quite ridiculous. And just to reiterate, it is not only speed of play that's impressive, but the fact that he generally plays very quickly and very well. He wins a lot. So, although he's not winning in this series, we'll see how it goes, as we are going to get into this Demon Hunter versus Priest. But if you really, even though this feels like an old matchup, because it's something we saw a lot last year, do you think there are any new additions or changes that are going to sort of slant this one way or the other for these players?
Right, so I'm glad you drew up that comparison because the time that we were seeing Priest versus Demon Hunter a lot in the previous meta, it was the Tempo Priest, which had the double Apotheosis and really relied on Sethic, etc. And the Soul Demon Hunter that had more of the removal package with Shard, Shatter, Mystic. I think that this new iteration of Demon Hunter, which has a bit more minion presence in terms of the double-bladed ladies and perhaps more reach also with the double Relentless Pursuits, should in theory be better placed against Priest. And on top of that, this is not the old Tempo Priest. It's Highlander Priest. You're not gonna, play strictly around Apotheosis every turn because they're only running one copy of it. So I actually feel that if Demon Hunter was favored, if you thought that Demon Hunter was favored in this matchup in the previous iteration, it should only be a bit more favored now. But I know that even in its previous form, it was highly contested which of those was actually ahead in the matchup.
Yeah, and it looks like Blythe as well has a pretty incredible opening hand for this matchup, considering, of course, he is playing Highlander Priest. He has that Sethic Veilweaver and all sort of the cheap spells that are going to help out with that. The Renew, but also the Holy Smite for some early removal, and even that Acidic Swampu sneaking in there. So, and with this Penance Draw off the top, this is looking pretty good for Blythe, whereas on the other side of the board, I would say not so much, do you think, unless this Illidari Studies can maybe dig him out of this?
Yeah, the double weapons, not necessarily what you want to see this early on. It so happens that because it's a strong Sethic swing from Blythe, that the first Eldraki is going to get some work done. But yeah, I also definitely think that these studies are going to have to pull Piña some card draw, and so he can get to the real powerhouse cards. The Soul Shard Lapidaries come to mind. It's just funny how I was mentioning Apotheosis over and over and saying that Highlander Priest runs one or no copies of it, but the first Sethic pull is immediately Apotheosis, which every bit of additional healing is crucial in this matchup. And there's the Pyro to go right along with it.
Yeah, something we saw players adapt a lot in earlier versions of this matchup was basically taking a decent chunk of damage in the early game, but then having that Pyro Apotheosis kind of reset to keep the health all the way back up to 30. We'll see if that's going to be the plan. My only worry, I guess, for this matchup, at least on Blythe's side, is that he isn't getting any of the more proactive minions down now because everything in hand is reactive, and this might give a little bit of an opening here for Demon Hunter to just take this game.
In most draws of Demon Hunter, I would agree with you, but man, Piñas has not been hitting the good stuff. I mean, the Crimson Sigil Runner is still decent off of Illidari Studies. Any card draw, I think, would have been decent, but right now... Oh no, the Skull is going to get trapped when it's on turn 6. That's unfortunate. He does at least have enough juice to get down the Bladed Lady, but all of this damage is kind of what you want to be closing out the endgame by using the Twin Slice, Chaos Strike, etc. And in this period of the game, the Demon Hunter would much rather be playing minions.
Right, and I guess there's a silver lining here. Although the Skull's not playable next turn, it will be very easy to get rid of those Eldraki Warblades and the Illidari Studies, right? So even though not next turn, it'll be the turn after. So it's not like, say, in OTK when Skull is placed next to Il'gynoth and you can't just throw that out, right? So at least there's a way you can get rid of it now. There's Relentless Pursuit as well, so it does have access to more and more damage. But it is going to be tough here for Blythe.
Interesting choices for Piñas. I mean, I kept talking about how important card draw is, but you're right, Skull probably playable next turn, so I could see a world where he goes Vilephian Trainer instead. Although, having said that, he can't fit in Eldraki plus Vilephian, so if it's Vilephian, then the Skull is coming down 2 turns later.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
I did not expect the glide, and this actually... I mean, we'll see how it works out when the hand's redrawn, of course, but Blythe did have a pretty solid hand. He had that Apotheosis, the Pyromancer, the weapon, the weapon removal like he had before. Like, the hand was good, even with the Alexstrasza, to get towards some of that late game-ending power. And that's kind of gone away. His new hand isn't bad by any means, but there's just not as much of it.
It's true. I think Piñas kind of just... my first instinct was not Glide because you have Skull and you really want to keep Skull, but he quickly evaluated that the disruption that he would cause to Blythe by playing the Glide was more valuable than him guaranteeing Skull on curve, which it's tough to parse whether or not that's right, but if he's ahead on board, then I kind of like where his head is at. It's pretty creative for sure.
Well, he won't be aware of this, but it is also paid off pretty well because now I believe there are 2 Apotheosis in the deck, which means that Zephyrus is not active right now.
Good catch. Yeah, the generated Apotheosis that I thought was super lucky is actively making Blyze's life quite hard right now.
Yeah, and there's Dragon Queen. Of course, not playable this turn anyway, but potentially next turn. But unless he gets hold of one of those Apotheosis, his hand looks pretty bad. He might even have to draw back to playing Elucia to just try and not die, right? And just give himself an additional turn to like maybe throw away some damage cards and just survive. This has just suddenly gone very, very wrong off the back of a glide.
Yep, not dying is a big ask here. We can see Soul Shard, Lapidary, Hero Power, plus Mana Feeder, Panthera, perfect mana usage, tons of damage pushed face, and no spells played to generate a taunt. Looks like he will just go for Blade Dance instead, get rid of the Ogre Monster, and because of the order on it, also the taunt. I can respect that for sure as well. He also doesn't know about whether or not there are any Apotheosis in hand, so clearing a minion definitely makes sense here.
And I like it as well because if your next turn is going to be Relentless Pursuit, well, that creates a taunt if you don't kill the Ogremancer, right? So it's just get rid of it cleanly now and open up the options going forward. And Bly's already on 8 health. And Pinias just ready to take his game at this point.
I mean, I didn't spot the glide and how impactful it would be. Pinias didn't know that he would be shuffling back a second copy of any card, but that was single-handedly the most impactful glide I have ever seen in Hearthstone. So the pursuit is 4, another 8 from the twin slices, 9, 10, 11, 12. Huh.
Just off, right? Yeah, he's just off.
Demons.
But
Well, he can start with a pursuit and then cycle the Consume Magic if he likes. Gonna instead start with the Panthera draw. Ooh.
Okay. Because even though he's not quite there yet with this turn, and he won't get lethal now, but we can see that, well, Blyze doesn't really have anything to survive next turn either, right? So, of course, again, we can see this, but Pinias is just looking very, very solid right now. And this is a surprise, I will admit. I didn't think this style of Demon Hunter was going to be seen at all in the tournament. And looks like he's making it work, because he's currently at 4-1 record so far.
Yeah. Interesting deviation away from the skull here. He's just trying to cash in the damage and holding on to Consume Magic, I assume, if Apotheosis does come down. Blyze, like you said, forced to go for the Elucia, gets the skull, and he needs quite a miracle, but off of Pinias' deck, there's already both Eldraki's used, so very little.
I'm going to make a call. The card he draws will be Apotheosis, and it's Zephyrus lethal.
Or it's just lethal on board.
Oh, I wanted him to have some way. I wanted the skull to get him some way just to survive so that he could actually just make that play, because that would be insane. But honestly, what a huge game for Pinias there. I do think that when he watches the VOD back, he will be like, that is the best choice I have ever made. That glide almost single-handedly won him that game. That was really, really big. And honestly, not a choice I would have picked in that situation.
Me neither. I was not considering it by any means just because I was tunneled on the skull that he had in his hand. But Pinias identified not only does Blyze have more cards in his hand, he could potentially even shuffle back the coin, which is a terrible thing to top deck for Priest, and just kind of starve him of resources, which is a situation you can try and take an advantage of, I think, if you already have a lot of minions on board. And it so happened that all of those conditions were fulfilled for Pinias, and he is ahead 2-0 up against, I think, the highest earning Masters Tour player of all time.
Right. And I do believe, if my records are correct, this does mean that Pinias has Warlock left, which is Zoo, so another, sort of high damage, a little bit more board focused, but still high damage aggro style to potentially beat any of the decks Blyze or any one of the decks Blyze has to choose. And again, if it goes anything like that, the Highlander Priest does have that slight weakness that if it can't just get those tools together quick enough, something along the lines of this Zoo Warlock can just get the job done in a very fast fashion.
I certainly feel that those who are bringing Zoo, Burn Mage, and most versions of Rogue have Priest in mind when they are building their lineup together. Pinias has chosen to have this Demon Hunter instead of, say, a Mage, like I was mentioning, but the way it panned out, it feels like it's quite effective against Priest too. We could be just seeing that his lineup is built to deal with Priest or soft targeted at the very least, so I think he should be feeling pretty comfortable with this last deck, and the double cult Neophytes could also come in handy against not just Priest from Blyze, but possibly Druid as well.
Yeah, I was just looking at the deck list there, and it is the Cult Neophyte that stands out. Not an inclusion that everyone bringing Zoo makes, but one that in this seems like it's going to pay off a lot, because also there is the Priest from Blaze. He does have, I believe, his own Rogue, and he has the Highlander Druid as well. So all decks, they're, you know, pretty spell heavy and reliant a lot of the time. So even just the Cult Neophyte kind of on curve, or at least within that early game, could just open up a window to take a victory. So looks like Pinyas doing very, very well so far.
I definitely expect him to keep up that streak. Cult Neophyte as an inclusion, I think you hit a lot of the relevant points. Like, a lot of the popular meta decks are spell heavy at the moment. I just wonder if people have come to the conclusion that Cult Neophyte is so good that you run 2 copies of it instead of 2 copies of Expired Merchant. Because I used to think that Merchant plus Hand of Gul'dan was the way you win most games, but it's all kind of a rippling effect from the inclusion of Wicked Whispers, which is another discard effect, and certain hands you can kind of maneuver to make Wicked Whispers discard your Skull of Gul'dan. It's kind of hard, but it happens.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but I think it's much more just for Wicked Whispers, just a sacrifice you make to make your board unclearable, right? Because we've seen it even yesterday on stream where it's played so early that normally the Zoom minions are pretty sturdy anyway, and then you give mainly the +1 health, and then there's just no removal really that lines up too well, and off the back of that, Life Tap just gets the job done. And I think we've been seeing more and more of that, right? Where even though getting the big draws from the discarding Zoo is great, really Life Tap does keep it going with the help of Dark Glare and the Tour Guides as well, which meaning there's no mana to pay for those. So looking good so far, and honestly, you know, whenever you're in that 2-0 spot, you are going to be feeling pretty good. You've got to win 1 game out of a potential 3. And looking at this as well with the bans, did you expect this OTK Demon Hunter to be banned from this lineup for Pinyas?
Honestly, I did not necessarily expect that because looking at his lineup, it is rather aggressive as a whole, but the OTK Demon Hunter is an exception among other traditionally combo decks in that it has a lot of healing available to it, and so maybe some of Pinyas's decks that are burn heavy, such as the Soul Demon Hunter, would struggle a bit.
Yeah, so
that's a nice curve for the opener, though.
Yeah, the Neophyte was kept, but the rest of it came together post-mulligan for Pinyas very, very well here. That just looks like a good curve, especially if the Jailer can stay on board and activate that extra damage from the Manari Mosha.
Yeah, looks very likely to. Okay, Pinyas actually holding off on Neophyte this turn. I was expecting him to just play it down. Holy Smite probably goes off on it, and then the Manari Mosha follows up. It's clear that he is prioritizing tapping into some of the more impactful cards. I don't think it's so much as saving the Neophyte for a particular turn as trying to hit your Dark Lair, your Flesh Giants that Priest really struggles to deal with, at least the Highlander version, with only 1 copy of Shadow or Death.
And it always feels better with Neophyte when Neophyte is like protecting an already developed board, right? It's fine on curve, but a lot of the time, you want to drop Neophyte down when you have already like 2 or 3 threatening-ish minions, so then it just makes them more and more likely to stick. But on Blaze's side, he is acquiring a nice set of tools there to be able to start cleaning up some of these minions.
Yeah, palm reading, discounting the Soul Mirror is huge for sure. The Holy Smites probably don't have any good target at the moment, but they'll help to stave off while he sets up for that Soul Mirror. On Pinyas' side though, he's drawn Hand of Gul'dan, so the Nightshade Matrons will be pretty insane in the following turns, and he got the 2-for-1 discount on the Flesh Giant on that last tap because of the Soul Shard, so both hands looking pretty strong.
Ooh. Mind Control, not really what Blaze will be looking for.
Okay, not the Lackey that would be ideal for this situation. Goblin would have been insane here. It's still something.
Yeah, it's not looking too bad. There are so many options here, right, for Pinyas.
Yeah, if he wants to just maximize his mana, we could see Dark Glare Raise Dead into Nightshade Matron.
Yeah, part of me was even just staring at the Giant and just like, can he just play a Giant this turn and see what happens? But I think this might give him a few more options here.
Just a bit awkward because the Raise Dead only, I think, had only the 1 minion in the pool prior to this trade. And I honestly didn't hate the idea of Raise Dead for just one minion, and then you just keep your 1/1 around because it's more immediate damage. But Piñas probably values the consistent minion pressure that he can put down turn after turn. Still a fan of the matron, though.
Almost out of time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really weird, right? So he can kill this Sethic like this easily, keep the matron. He doesn't exactly need to draw a ton of cards this turn. His hand is looking surprisingly full at this point in the game. So I think I'd like him holding the matrons for targets that need a little bit more pressure to kill, right? Because they are 5/5 rush. So I do like this. I still think personally I would have ended the turn with a giant on board somehow, but this doesn't look so bad either.
Right. I think it was for me between a giant play and a matron play because my head was at I just want more attack on board that can go face next turn.
Right.
And yes, I think with that play was setting up for a turn where you can go giant and matron all at once, but I'm concerned about the timing of that because next turn Blythe has access to coin Soul Mirror even if Piñas didn't have the read on a discounted Soul Mirror.
Yeah, this is nice. I was just going to say, this turn, Gia, there can be Cult Neophyte and double Flesh Giant.
All right.
That seems like a board you want Neophyte to defend, and it's going to get the job done as well.
Neophyte plus Giant definitely seems strong. I don't know. I just think there could have been 5 more damage available. It might not matter in the grand scheme of things, but...
I guess there would have only been 2 more, right? Because he wouldn't have been able to play the Minari, which is a 3/4, so...
True.
That has stuck.
But then the Voidwalker could have gone face that turn. Okay.
It's true. It's true. We're going to go for Broom as well.
Fit it all
A
in.
little bit more of the board.
He is very well protected because of the Cult Neophyte. You cannot coin Soul Mirror. Oh wait,
Oh,
why does the coin cost 0?
I'm going to assume graphical bug and continue.
Yeah.
That should not be the case. It should cost 1, right? Oh, wait. Is it because of the minus reduction? The coin costs -1? Is that how palm reading works?
Is that how palm reading works?
Well, I guess. We'll find out. Anyway, moving on.
okay.
The hysteria was actually huge for Blythe there because there was no real other option.
Worked out great. I mean, I might have gotten baited by whether or not that was a graphical error and just played the coin.
Neophyte number 2, though, is going to come down to cause not as many issues this turn for Blythe because now he has the wiggle room to just Soul Mirror, but still. Here's a bit of a problem. It does mean that the board state ends up just even again and again. I mentioned like Piñas does have plenty of cards still to play out. Canrithed's in there. He can Dark Glare tap just to carry on with a little bit more mana.
Getting word from Sottle that negative reductions have always counted. Good to know.
Okay.
Learn something new every day.
There is so much untapped power in this world.
And Piñas absolutely needs more juice from this next refill. He has the comfort of knowing that both Hysteria and Soul Mirror have been used, but there's still the threat of Zephrys, etc.
No, this could end up being a decent Wicked Whispers, right?
Yep.
It looks a little bit weird depending on how he wants to go about it, but I do like the Minari into potentially the Wicked Whispers, even though it does float a mana. It does just put a lot of stuff on the board yet again, and we have seen that Blythe has been desperate to defend right every single turn.
Yeah, I'm on board for that. Either of the strong plays, quote unquote, that Piñas had available to him involved discarding a card. This play, I believe, gets him the most immediate stats on board, plus immediate damage to the face. To steal the Spirit Jailer, and then he can Aeon Reaver the Canrithad.
I wonder if it's worth aiming that somewhere else, because he could make a trade into, say, the
Yeah.
Dark Glare or
Ooh,
the
that has
Minari.
Rush. Yeah, I think it goes on the Minari then instead, because it feels like Piñas has so few cards in hand that you're not particularly worried about Dark Glare getting extra value. He would have that mana anyway in most situations, so I would just try and get rid of the biggest minion. Yeah, that feels a bit unfortunate for Blythe here. Hard to have the read on what the last remaining card is, but there is quite a lot of damage for Piñas available.
And Shadowhunter Vol'jin is just one of those, I think, very hard cards to use. Sometimes it looks broken and you win the game because of it. But sometimes, you might either end up just even anyway, except you've gained a 3/6 for 5 mana, or it can be a little bit of a disaster like it was for Bly's that turn.
He needs the other Hand of Gul'dan or Counter Thud Prime, I was going to say, for big follow-up tempo plays.
But even without, look at this board anyway. Blythe is going to have to dig and find something pretty powerful.
Yeah, it could be a defensive Alexstrasza and just trade away the Manari, or we could see Aeon Reaver plus the Cobalt Spellkin or even Hero Power. I think this one is just better in almost every situation because he gets the 8/8.
And it's just less risk, right? If the Cobalt Spellkin gets played and the spells you get are a bit rubbish, then you've suddenly just ended up playing a 3/5. The Aeon Reaver does only deal with 1 anyway, so yeah, I like that choice from Bly's, but yeah, Prime is going to hit the board.
He gets the Matron as well. Those are pretty much the best outcomes. I think he's had Voidwalkers die here and there, but this Counter Thud is very cooperative. So, Apotheosis always scary, but does it warrant sinking the Dark Glare and the 6/6 with Rush, I assume, into the Alex?
Yeah, I think Pinyas just has to do anything he can and clears this board no matter what. Just get rid of the whole board, reduce the healing down. He knows he pretty much has already dealt with the AoE removals, and even if he max trades this board, look at what's left over. It should be more than enough to win the game.
He was clearly deciding whether it's both trades to both minions or just all to the face, because if you are going for the full trades, it's Flame Mid to the Alex and then value trade it with the Dark Glare on the 3/2. And I think he's decided here, if it's Apotheosis on the 3/2, doesn't actually get that much done, right? The most it can trade down is 4 damage. So I think this is fine from Pinyas.
Right. Yeah, it'll only heal for 5 and then like a hero power plus X. It's probably not going to be enough.
Yeah. Radiance Penance is a lot of healing, but doesn't quite deal with the giant Prime.
Yeah, that's
it.
just going to be it. It was just working out whether it was going to be enough, but the pressure just kept on coming there, and Blythe just couldn't hold it off, and he even had some draws that helped with that Hysteria basically on the turn he needed it, and it still was not enough. But really strong play there from Pinyas, honestly, and to 3-0 Blythe, it's got to be something you've got to be very, very happy about.
Absolutely, and it did happen in the blink of an eye. We were talking about Blythe's fast play. I think Pinyas, for the most part, matched that pace. And when he did have difficult turns, he didn't get caught up in the feeling of like, oh, I need to be at the same pace as my opponent and get pressured by that. He took his time deciding on optimizing, even at the very last turn before he had lethal, whether to trade down the entire board or just to get rid of the Alexstrasza. And I still have some questions about the Nightshade Matron timing, but absolutely the Flesh Giants coming down for cheap was super strong. I thought after that got cleared by the Hysteria that Pinyas would just run out of stuff, but he managed to just weave in pings so early on that he could hit the Prime and he could hit his next waves of threats consistently. And there was no one turn where it was giving Blythe a window to get back board control, and that's what really got Pinyas the win.
Yeah, and we did see the Neophytes have an impact, like both of them in this game, right? As they came out, and even Pinyas choosing not to play on curve, having 1 on 2 and going for that tap instead, as you mentioned. And just a really strong deck, and it's why that this Zoo list that we're seeing more and more and more of as we watch more of these matches in this tournament just seems to be maybe not the bring, but it must be close, because it looks like, at least to me, it's been performing very well.
I definitely think it is up there with the many decks that I did not consider to bring, but have turned out to perform really, really well. I mean, we're seeing it not just from players in the European region like Pinyas, we're seeing it from a lot of the APAC players, Glory notably. I don't think his match score is quite that good at the moment, but anything the world champion does, we have to pay attention to. So in terms of meta reading, I think Pinyas has it spot on.
Yeah, do definitely have to take note of how